Welcome to Tomorrow.Africa, the podcast that explores the possibilities and the potential of Web3 in the African continent. We believe that the future of Africa is bright and that emerging technologies such as blockchain can accelerate its development. We interview people who contribute to this breakthrough in Africa and around the world and who hold a positive vision for the future. My name is Yassi Lokman and I'll be your host for this podcast. In today's episode, we delve into the fascinating world of innovation in humanitarian organizations. Joining us is Arun Maharajan, the blockchain lead at UNICEF, the United Nations agency responsible for providing vital aid and support to children across the globe. Discover how UNICEF's embrace of blockchain technology has led to innovative solutions and impacts in humanitarian and development work, from financial inclusion to healthcare innovations. Arun sheds light on the potential of blockchain in transforming societies and fostering impactful solutions for vulnerable communities. Stay tuned for an eye-opening discussion that showcases the powerful intersection of blockchain and humanitarian efforts in Africa and around the world. Arun, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're the blockchain lead at UNICEF, the UN agency responsible for providing humanitarian and development aid to children around the world. Well, when I first heard about the adoption of blockchain technology by UNICEF, I personally found it somewhat surprising, as I didn't expect that the UN agency would prioritize such an emerging technology that many institutions still do not comprehend fully. But the more I have looked at how it is being leveraged and for what reasons, the more it made sense. So that's exactly what we'll be discussing today. But first, can you tell more about yourself, Arun, and what path has led you to now lead blockchain-related projects at UNICEF?
Yes, absolutely. The point you make about UNICEF not being, well known in the blockchain space, but still being very much there, we are kind of an outlier. Is very, very inspiring for me. And then okay, I will of course introduce myself before getting into why I joined UNICEF. So I have a background in engineering. I started my life in the automotive industry as an engineer, about 10 years there. Then the next 8 odd years was spent in emerging technology and innovation. So I've done a whole bunch of things. I have run a 3D printing design studio along with the team, a couple of years of innovation consulting, design thinking, strategy workshops, stuff like that. And then most recently, before UNICEF, I was the first, let's say, business hire, as well as a product lead of a blockchain platform for supply chain management. And then that ultimately led me to UNICEF. And I was introduced to blockchain reasonably late, around 2018. But I was struck by the potential of the technology in how it could possibly even influence societies as a whole in how we organize ourselves, how we organize our work, how we organize our flow of money. So that was just downright fascinating. And then as I kept getting more into it, I started looking for, okay, where can this technology be applied to really help society? And that's when I stumbled upon UNICEF and their work, and it was super impressive. And I'm extremely lucky to be part of this team.
UNICEF, which stands for United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. I'm sure that most of our listeners know what UNICEF is and the type of projects that it carries out, but I think it might still be interesting to give some examples, and first to remind what is the mission of UNICEF, and then maybe some words about the place innovation plays in the projects that UNICEF carries out.
Yes, of course. UNICEF is a UN agency that was formed about 75 years ago with the mandate to work on children's needs and then to basically fill the gap that was felt way back then, and it still continues to be relevant. So UNICEF is a approximately $8 billion operation. We are spread across 190 plus countries, like pretty much in every country in the world. I mean, I don't know if there's any country left out. So UNICEF's mandate broadly is to work in areas that influence children and young people, and this is extremely broad. So UNICEF is an agency that has multiple programs spanning across sectors. Like for example, we are very well known for our vaccination and immunization programs. We work in maternal health. We work in child nutrition. We work in financial inclusion. We work with youth groups. We work with education, of course. We even pay teachers' salaries in Afghanistan. Like it's just a very, very, very broad spectrum of programs, and also this implies that there is a lot of scope for innovation. And then innovation for us is to work with emerging technologies. By us, I mean the UNICEF Office of Innovation that I'm a part of, which is located in Stockholm, Sweden, where broadly the office works in identifying edgy new solutions which use emerging technologies such as blockchain, AI, drones, augmented reality, virtual reality, etc. Validate them, encourage them. By them, I mean startups encourage solutions to be built and then prime them for scale to be deployed across the UNICEF ecosystem.
You've said at the introduction that UNICEF is somewhat of an outlier among similar institutions in regards to the adoption of blockchain. Can you tell more about the story of the adoption of blockchain by UNICEF and how it came to play such a significant constituent or significant part of its strategy?
Yes. So UNICEF, as far as I'm aware, is the only UN agency which actually deals with cryptocurrency, for example. We have the UNICEF Crypto Fund, on which I would be, giving more details later. So the UNICEF Crypto Fund is the only UN mechanism of its kind which can receive, hold, and disperse cryptocurrency. We have been dealing, of course, even with non-crypto blockchain use cases and in exploration since 2015. I mean, 2015, as many of you know, was around the time when Ethereum came up. So we started pretty early in our explorations, and we keep pushing the boundary. Like right now, for example, we are looking at the potential of zero knowledge proofs, multi-party computation, and similar technologies which can help preserve privacy and trust on public blockchain infrastructure, and then how that can be applied to programs, for example. So we keep pushing the boundary in terms of our knowledge, learning, interaction with the ecosystem, as well as building pilots. Like we have a team here that builds pilots internally, which is kind of unusual. It's not standard procedure uh, for entities such as ourselves to have a full stack developer in the house, for example, to build pilots using emerging technology. But then we do. So that is something that we do as well. And yeah, hopefully later on I can give you a bit of a flavor of what we are building.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned venture fund and crypto fund. How are those two related?
Yes. So the UNICEF Venture Fund, we also call it the UNICEF Innovation Fund, was founded in 2014 as a mechanism to discover, fund, and then encourage startups around the world to build solutions that are aligned with, of course, UNICEF programmatic goals, and then also to create open source output as public goods to benefit anybody in the world. So this is where we look at blockchain startups, AI startups, drone startups, and then so on. So this is a pooled fund uh, with a value of around $35 million. Then in 2019, we added cryptocurrency to the venture fund as a way of course, we as in UNICEF developing our ability to deal with crypto, to understand crypto, to handle it, and then to build institutional muscle memory on a future which is digitally financed. So we want to be prepared for that as well. So since 2019, we have been running the UNICEF Crypto Fund as a different or like alternate payment mechanism to US dollars within the UNICEF Venture Fund.
And how successful was it so far?
So the crypto fund initially started off with about a bit more than 2,500 ETH, and then 8 Bitcoin. We had multiple donors who were very, very happy to work with us. So far, we have assisted or funded 40 plus startups, and the value of funds at the time of disbursement summed up is a bit more than $3.5 million. So I would say reasonably successful for the goals that we set out to achieve with crypto fund. And over the last few years, we have even expanded the use cases that the fund can be used for. So of course, providing funding to startups was where it started, but then we have even paid our vendors. Some of them, not not like all of them, but some of them who are willing to accept crypto, we have even paid them. So we hope to keep expanding the use cases where we can utilize the crypto in the crypto fund, as well as expand the basket of cryptocurrency that we can hold as well. So onward and upward. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the startups obviously benefit from the crypto fund and the venture fund by having funding, but are there some other ways that the startups can benefit from the programs? Like, do you have mentoring, for example?
Absolutely. So our startups run through a 1 year mentoring period. Uh, Normally, startups, when they get first introduced to us and when they first enter into the relationship with the venture fund, we call it the seed stage. So we give them $100,000 worth of either USD or crypto. But then there are startups who have a continued relationship with us. They go on to the growth and acceleration stage, so they can get $200,000 or even $400,000. So that's about the money. Now, apart from the money, we have a whole host of mentorship that we provide for the startups. So this includes design mentorship, open source mentorship, business mentorship, of course, software mentorship, specific mentorship related to the tech area. We try to get them access to certain important things. For example, the blockchain companies were asking for, hey, can we get introduced to smart contract auditing services? They are extremely costly for us, but then can you do something about it? So or then we are looking at tokenomics. Can you introduce us to a tokenomics expert? So these are a bit more specific, but yes. So we like pretty much keep everything open. Apart from the in-house mentors during the 1 year program, we do connect startups who do well with the broader ecosystem. So this includes VCs or other high net worth individuals, and then so on. But then ultimately, the goal is, if the startup does well and if the solution comes up nicely, we really, really, really try hard to get them introduced within the UNICEF universe to the other country offices where the rubber hits the road for us, where the programs are actually executed, and we try to get them a pilot. So we have been successful in doing that for quite a few startups, and then the startups get that opportunity to genuinely execute in a UNICEF environment. Some of them even go on to get long-term vendor agreements with us.
By the way of example, could you mention a few success stories, some companies that have benefited from the venture fund, leveraging general use cases of emerging technologies like AI and blockchain? And if you can then maybe focus on startups that have been leveraging specifically blockchain technology.
I mean, of course, I can speak more easily about the blockchain startups, but before this session, I was looking at other startups from Africa who would be interesting to mention across the technology areas. So I have a few names here. I'll start off with blockchain. This is a startup that, of course, you and your listeners may be aware of because you interviewed them earlier. So we worked with Kotani Pay from Kenya, who have developed the off-ramping service through SMS interface and through mobile money. So we were interested in them because of the connection with financial inclusion, and then the possibility of using their services in a future of say utilizing cryptocurrency in cash transfers, for example. We have Cloudline from South Africa. So they're a drone company. So they have made drone airships, which is utilized in the delivery of vaccines, which provide emergency internet hotspots, or for climate change mitigation in terms of capturing images and then so on. So this has been a pretty good success story for us. Um, we have a Neural Labs from Kenya, which is more recent. So they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to accelerate medical diagnosis. So they work with the chest X-rays, and they use their algorithms to diagnose tuberculosis, breast cancer, pneumonia, for example. From extended reality, we have Nubian extended reality from Ghana. They work with the Ghana country office, so they use their technology to create immersive learning experiences as well. So these are some examples.
When selecting companies, are there some specific use cases leveraging blockchain that you're specifically interested about?
So how we uh, work is we put out a call for startups to apply for us. Uh, some calls are oriented around UNICEF programs. For example, the call to which Kotani Pay responded to, we were looking specifically at startups working in the area of financial inclusion. Uh, Whereas some other calls are more tech oriented. So our first blockchain call was pretty open. If you're a blockchain company doing something aligned with SDGs and meeting our other criteria, please apply to us. So it can happen both ways. So there can be a program focus, like for example, we have other calls out in the past and upcoming. For example, in the area of child online safety, we have a climate change and a climate action call for startups. There is one that will come up in health and mental health. So these are different, and then we have other calls on more infrastructure generic topics. Like for example, there was a call around connectivity. Uh, Blockchain startups specifically who work in this area.
And are there some specific use cases that UNICEF as an institution um, on the long term works on leveraging in the African continent and in other areas?
So there is, I mean, one of our reasons for existence as the Office of Innovation is to kind of matchmake between, let's say, the cutting edge use cases that are out there in the world, which comes up in the world of technology, with what is happening on the ground in UNICEF programming. So that way, there is no specific use cases that we have prioritized in that sense, but we do keep our eyes open for various possibilities. Like for example, we worked with a startup who used blockchain to enable on-chain saving circles. I think they are called Roscas in some geographies, chit funds in India, where I come from. But this is a well-known concept. So they use smart contracts to make that more efficient, and then build in reputation scores and so on. So now we are like seeing an interest in one of our country offices from Africa who already has a similar work going on, but offline using paper or some Excel sheets or whatever it is, and like, can we add value there? Can we improve how they go about this? And then if so, what is the extra benefit that they can get beyond the technology? Like, for example, um, if we build a reputation uh, on on chain for the individuals who are taking part in the savings group, can we introduce them to a microcredit organization, right? So and then can they get loans for starting their own business? So these are all questions that we attempt to find answers to. Uh, so so yeah, I hope that gives a kind of a sense, right? So another area that we are looking at is how to bring in crypto in an inclusive manner for cash transfer programming that we have around the world, both for humanitarian as well as social protection use cases.
You've also mentioned that you're developing prototypes in-house. How do you choose the specific use cases for the prototypes? And so far, which prototypes have you been working on?
So the prototyping part of our work is a lot more open. It's a lot more explorative, where that is more technology led rather than program led. So here we give ourselves a bit of freedom to really try out everything. Like, for example, uh, we made a ERC20 token called the Boost token a few years back when it was hot, to kind of attempt to quantify and measure contributions to digital public goods. We even had a NFT for recognizing contributions, for example. A couple of smart contract platforms. Uh, right now, we are trying out the DAO mechanism uh, uh, in a specific context of uh, attracting and democratizing uh, contributions to any digital public good. Like, you can imagine a digital public good to be a GitHub or a GitLab repo with folks around the world. Of course, there's a central team, but there are so many users and contributors. How do you find the best insights, and how do you find the best features to push the digital public good forward? Of course, it is ultimately an open source public good. Uh, there may be a good business model for some of them, for others maybe not. So we plugged in a treasury as well. So the whole workflow looks at democratizing decision making and then getting specific pieces of work funded. Um, does this have a direct application into the UNICEF uh, programming? Not exactly. We have lessons that we can learn, of course. For example, on-chain governance, voting mechanisms that we can apply. But yeah, the prototyping work is a lot more open, let's say.
Interesting. And so you've mentioned a prototype related to DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. Can you tell more about this prototype?
Yes. So the interest in DAOs started a few years back because of the potential that it has in bringing um, community together, right? So and then the F in UNICEF stands for fund. So ultimately, we deal with money, and then more importantly, how money is allocated for the right piece of work to be done. So the same thing applies for our digital initiatives as well. So the DAO was nice fit. Um, but then where exactly to apply the DAO? So ultimately, we decided that, okay, let's try out a DAO mechanism. Um, there's a discussion forum, temperature check, um, voting, and then ultimately releasing of funds from custody mechanism. All of this is on the Ethereum blockchain. So we are going to apply this to a selected project a digital public to a certified digital public good, as per the DPG standard, and then work with their team to build a community around this DAO. So who can join this DAO? How to distribute the tokens, and then to sensitize them to the voting strategy, and then to community manage this until the DAO creates value. So there are, of course, a lot of hypotheses and assumptions that we have made. But one of the things that I'm really curious to see is if the DAO kind of changes itself. I mean, I keep saying that here internally. It will be like awesome to see the DAO say, "Hey, you know what? We should do this better," and then kind of change its own structure. So that is also an hypothesis question. So we are very very curious to validate our hypothesis, learn from it, and of course create a next iteration, because ultimately I think communities coming together, coalescing together for a specific decision and then getting it funded is a very powerful mechanism.
Are the experiences gained from these prototypes shared online, or is it something that is for now done internally?
Many of them are shared online in our blog. Our blog normally happens at let's say, the end of the life cycle, where we share the goal, the process, what happened, the learnings, etc., etc. But if you mean of a more active sharing, let's say during a pilot, I can give you an example of the quadratic funding pilot that we did with Gitcoin a few months back. So there was a special Gitcoin round that went out for us testing the quadratic funding and quadratic voting mechanism to fund 10 selected certified DPGs. These are actually picked from the startups that we have funded through the venture fund, and this pilot obviously was shared with the broader world through our social media. We wanted to encourage people to come there, to check it out, check out those amazing projects, learn about them, and if they are convinced, donate some money. So this was more active even during the project phase. I think we ended up raising around $100,000 in a mix of DAI and ETH, I think. Yeah.
Are there specific blockchains that you use for the crypto fund? You've mentioned the use of the Ethereum blockchain, but are there some other blockchains that you leverage for these different use cases?
There are the crypto fund is a slightly different conversation. So that's about the cryptocurrency. So right now we are authorized to hold Ether on Ethereum blockchain and Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. So we do not accept any other crypto. But when it comes to prototyping and piloting, it's a little bit more open. We can pick if we want to try out say a new chain that has come up with amazing gas fee economics, or a new chain which has privacy preserving mechanisms, and we want to try it out, we will find a way to try it out. But when it comes to the startups that we invest in, we are totally chain agnostic. We don't care too much about the chain. We care more about the use case and the impact. So we have startups who have, of course, built on Ethereum, Polygon, so on, but we also have startups who are built on Celo, who are built on Stellar. So there we are reasonably open.
So for these different startups that you have mentioned, have you focused on specific countries in the African continent?
We are very open to receiving applications from pretty much across the continent, and we are very happy if we get an application from a country that we have not invested in before. Like so far, we have invested in startups from Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ghana, Tunisia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, Mali, and Cameroon. So we would love to see projects from other countries as well, and we got a variety of projects, like not just blockchain, of course. I mean, there's AI, drones, drones companies from South Africa, um, for example. So and it's across program areas. So there are companies who works in education. There are companies with a focus on health, nutrition, environment, climate, poverty reduction, as well as core infra topics such as connectivity. It's fantastic. So we really hope to expand our footprint in Africa. Let's say.
The UN has published in 2020 a report called Blockchain Applications in the United Nations Systems Towards a State of Readiness. This report basically explores different use cases about how UN could leverage blockchain technology for its activities. Do you at UNICEF follow the overall UN digital directives and specifically directives related to blockchain?
Yes, we are very much aligned with the digital directives, and I think the a big one was the Secretary General's Digital Cooperation Roadmap from 2020 again. So in that roadmap, the Secretary General speaks about promoting digital public goods to create a more equitable world. So that ties in directly with UNICEF's involvement with the Digital Public Goods Alliance. I mean, UNICEF is a part of the DPG Alliance, and even the DAO that we're building now is linked to DPGs, for example. There is a directive on ensuring digital inclusion for all, including the most vulnerable. So I can give an example of the previous blockchain cohort that we funded with an explicit focus on financial inclusion. Like, for example, one of the startups that we funded there who went on to do a pilot within the UNICEF country office they were a blockchain solution, but they built it in such a way that even people without phones can get access to their services through a QR code. So these are extremely important for us, right? Then there is the aspect of ensuring protection of human rights, for example, which the SG mentions. We had an earlier cohort on child online safety, which I think is directly linked to this. And regarding artificial intelligence, we are very active in forums around the world where we look to inform and influence the broader discussion. So the same thing applies to blockchain as well.
Arun, what is your vision of the future of the African continent? When talking about these emerging technologies like blockchain, which is discussions that can tend to be too technical, we sometimes lose touch about how they can concretely change things in the real world. But there is a reason that UNICEF and other institutions are prioritizing such technologies. The reason being that they can or they have the potential to transform things in real life. And when talking about the African continent, what is your personal opinion? How do you think blockchain technology can be leveraged, and how do you think the future can look like if it is leveraged in the right way?
That's a fantastic question. I am a fan, of course, of blockchain technology for various reasons. Of course, I did mention its potential to impact society at large. I mean, it's the first time that I have at least come across a tech which from day one is about society. Of course, there are elements in society that use it in different ways, gambling or whatever, but that apart, the underlying potential remains. So with that in mind, and also accepting the fact that the whole space has emerged as a technology around money. So it is ultimately a financial oriented technology. I really hope that expands beyond that. Uh, uh, but for now, that is the main focus, right? So with that in mind, uh, I think for the African continent, uh, there are a plethora of things that can happen. Like, so my vision would involve something like accessibility, to services that otherwise may not be present. Um, like for example, globally funded, uh, easy to access microcredit with an online KYC driven by a decentralized ID, for example, right? So there is accessibility, accessibility for global finance and services linked to that, and of course accessibility to markets. So and this can work both ways. So the world can access Africa, but also Africa can access the, world with respect to offerings packaged in a blockchain manner, let's say. And linked to Africa accessing to the world is in. I mean, I'm really impressed by the energy which is coming up from the teams in Africa that we have seen. I mean, we have given out so many calls to startups before, of course. So we have interacted with a lot of projects, a lot of applications that have come from Africa. So that is the energy is great. And I mean, I don't have an exact number, but I'm sure we must have received 100 plus or a couple of hundred applications from the continent, and the trend is super encouraging. Uh, so there's a lot of innovation work happening there as well in specific countries. So that I mean, there are great talent. There is great talent coming out of the continent. So I think they can do amazing stuff uh, with respect to even putting Africa much more prominently on the world map when it comes to tech, and that's fascinating.
Arun, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs that have a project in this Web3 ecosystem? Have you noticed any common factor between the startups that you've worked with? Maybe some successful or some specific um, activities that they can carry out in order to increase their chances to be successful?
That's a great question. Um, by and large, uh, I mean, what I'm going to say will probably not sound very insightful because it's just, let's say, the basics, but the basics are, I think, what makes the difference. So Web3 startups, or rather tech startups in general, tend to be very tech driven, tech forward. But I think the teams that have really made a difference had a lot of user testing, user feedback, continuous product management. Again, from a user perspective, I think that is super critical. Of course, if a startup is with us and we are mentoring them, we give them specific insights in design, business modeling, and all that. So we try to plug in some of these gaps. But if the founder is interested in this, then it really helps. By founder, of course, I'm implying there is only one. Usually, there are more than one. But as long as there is a strong interest in this, and it's considered equal to the tech, I think that's very important. Another thing is sometimes the pitch is not very clear. So startups who have a clear elevator pitch and they have some sort of sponsor, if they have found one early on, the venture fund tends to be one of the, let's say, first movers, because we work with very early stage startups. So we tend to be their first sponsor, but it never really hurts to get some other supporter from elsewhere as well. And for that, some clarity basically on what is the vision or mission, and a clear elevator pitch, I think really makes a difference. And lastly, I think an openness to pivot is also important. Like for example, we had or rather we have a startup right now in the midway through their incubation period. When they started off, they had a particular vision, but then realized that due to regulatory, uh, let's say, restrictions, they could not execute on it. So they had to pivot very quickly, and they were willing to do that. So we stepped in with some of our mentors, and we had multiple sessions with them. They had another idea. Um, so to be more specific, they started off with wanting to use crypto for payments. Then that didn't fly. So because of the country involved, so then we switched to an NFT based solution, which still had a good promise to deliver on their original goals, and they worked around it, and they are making pretty good progress. So that kind of willingness, I think, also makes a difference.
For the listeners that would be interested to join this program to benefit from the innovation fund or the crypto fund, benefit both from funding and the mentoring, can you tell more about how they should proceed? If there are some requirements, specific requirements that you have before for the application?
Uh, yes. So I can list out let's say, the big points around the criteria for application, but for a really detailed list, I would suggest that any interested listener go to our website. So the criteria for application, first and foremost, we do not fund individuals, so we fund companies. They should not be NGOs. It should be a private company. And of course, the company should be registered in a UNICEF program country. I believe uh, all the countries in Africa fall under that list, so that shouldn't be a problem. There should be a, a willingness to open source whatever is the output in that 1 year working duration. Uh, Blockchain startups tend to be pretty open at the beginning, because blockchain, since the beginning, since Satoshi, has been pretty much open source, and so the blockchain startups, I find, they understand open source better. But for the other startups, other technology startups, this is something to consider. That we do insist that ultimately, at the end of the 1 year period, whatever output has been created is open source. Of course, we provide mentoring specifically around this. This is also one of our learnings over the many years of working with startups. Then a very important point is there has to be an existing prototype in order to apply for funding. We don't fund ideas. It need not be an advanced prototype, but some kind of prototype, something that you can demo, is very, very important. And of course, without it really being said, there has to be a connection to what UNICEF is interested in, some way of connecting the solution with the kind of impact that UNICEF is interested in, and this is pretty broad. But as long as we can draw some parallels, prove a connection to an SDG, for example, that would really go a long way. Yeah.
How can people learn more about UNICEF and specifically the Innovation Fund and projects related to blockchain?
Yes. So to learn more about all of this, I would highly recommend checking out our website. So it is unicefinnovationfund.org, written together. So I'll repeat it again: unicefinnovationfund.org. So all our portfolio companies are listed there, with a description of what they do, and even links to their work. We have a blog that speaks about impact created, and pilots, and everything else that a startup needs to know if they are interested in applying for funding from us. That information is also there. And from the website, there are links to our social handles, Twitter, LinkedIn, so on. So you can access that as well to keep in touch.
Great. Thank you very much, Arun, for the great insights you have shared. I'm very happy that I was able to talk to you, and I would love to stay in touch.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be part of your podcast, and I really, really hope to hear back from various projects and individuals and startups from Africa. Looking forward to that.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to visit our website, Tomorrow.Africa, and subscribe to our channels to be updated about the future episodes. We publish 2 episodes per month at the 1st and 15th of each month, so stay tuned for the next ones. And until then, stay curious, stay ambitious, and see you tomorrow.